Hey guys, well I just got some new tip-ups and I put some new line on these ones, and I'm going to put some new line on my other tip-ups. This is a Suffix braided line, 30-pound test, and then I just tie a swivel onto the end. But I wanted to do a quick video to help out maybe some beginners who are looking to go ice fishing with a list of maybe things they need, maybe some things they don't necessarily need but will make life easier. So let's have a little look. So here are a couple cheap tip-ups. You can buy these at Canadian Tire, Walmart, probably Cabela's, Bass Pro, pretty much everywhere sells a certain brand of this. This is a Berkeley brand. I picked these up for 15 bucks used from on Kijiji, and I got 4 of them, and like I said, I just spooled them with some braided line. But these are pretty cheap tip-ups. I've made tip-ups before. I have a video, so check those out. You can also buy small spinning spoons, spinning rod reel combos like that. I think that's 24-inch medium action. You can pick those up, and you just need there's different stands, these little red brackets. You can put it down like that. I just stick them in like that. So you'd want your hole kind of where the baseball glove is. They work pretty well. You can set your drag nice and low so that they can pull out line fairly easy. You could also use something like this. This is just a piece of 1x3 pine, cut 12 inches long with some notches in the ends to help keep the line on. And you can just use a branch, a nice flexible branch from the lake you're fishing on, and just put a loop on the end of the branch, and you can use that branch as your rod. You want to be careful because this potentially could go down the hole, so you want to keep an eye on things. You could always jam it in some snow, but that's another really inexpensive option as far as reels go and rods. Your basic tackle for ice fishing is pretty simple. I just have an assortment of hooks. There's treble hooks, bigger, medium, and small. I've got some octopus hooks. Got a few different spoons in there, a few jig heads up there, split shot sinkers, and that's about all I use. There's some spinners in here, but for the most part I just use a hook. I like a treble hook, a minnow, and a sinker. Each lake will have a specific lure that works best on those lakes. Usually it's 3 or 4 different lures, maybe some different colors, and they'll fluctuate through the year. So it's good to have those specific lures if you're going to go target a lake on a regular basis. I pretty much just use live bait wherever I can, and anywhere I can't, I keep my old minnows and I freeze them. I lay them on a sheet pan, freeze them so that they're not all stuck together, and then I stick them in a baggie, Ziploc baggie, throw them back in the freezer, and when I want to go out, I'll take them out the night before. You can also make salties. I don't do that just because it's more effort, but a lot of people will flavor them, and those work really well. So you've got your fishing rods and your basic tackle. Now you need some line to go between the two. What I like to use, and I've just switched to it, is a braided line. Fairly high pound test. This is 30 pound, and I tie a swivel snap at the end, or a snap swivel, whatever you want to call them, at the end. And what I'll use is some thinner monofilament, maybe 2-3 feet, depending on what kind of fish I'm going after, and maybe 8 to 10 pounds, all depending on the size of the fish you're expecting. And that keeps it clear, and the fish aren't as likely to see the line and everything going on. So you can use different spec line for whatever you're fishing. When I'm going after brook trout or splake, I'm usually using 4 pound. If I'm going after rainbows or Lakers, I'll do 10 or 12 pound. And if I'm going after toothy critters, then sometimes I'll even use a steel braided line at the end. So we've got our tip-ups, we've got our lures, hooks, terminal tackle, I guess you could call it. We've got the line to go between them. Now we need to get into the water. One of the best options is a gas-powered auger. They run anywhere from about 300 to 600. A lot of times you can find them used, and that's what I'd really recommend if you were looking to get into it. They take mixed oil and gas, so that's kind of a pain in the butt. You can get handheld augers, which run on manpower. Really inexpensive. I think new they're about $100. You keep the blade sharp, those things will outlast you. I have my grandfather's at my dad's house. Still just as good as when I got it. You want the auger to be about this, a little bigger than the fish you're after. So if you're catching some real monster fish, you're going to want an 8 or a 10-inch hole. If you're just going after perch or smaller trout, a 6-inch hand auger would be more than enough. I like to use the hand auger first early season ice. When you're at 6-8 inches of ice, I find it cuts really well through that harder ice, and it's a lot lighter than lugging around that gas auger, especially if I'm bouncing from little hole to hole. So we've got pretty much everything now. Couple little tips. I like to use a water jug to put my minnows in. They're insulated. You can put 2-3 dozen in there without any issues. I've got a little scooper, so that just sits down in there. Perfect. You don't have to get your hands soaking wet. Bring a set of Nose pliers. You don't need long ones. These are just kind of extra ones that I had, so I like to bring them along. A couple different sizes of fishing line, like I said, depending on what fish species I'm going to target. Maybe some extra lures if I know that a particular lake likes spoons, then I'll bring some extra spoons. As far as location goes when you're ice fishing, one of the great things about ice fishing when you're a noob is you can see where people have been. You can see where holes have been punched. Maybe you can see where there's ice huts. Here on Lake Nipissing, it's basically little groups of cities, depending on where you are, on the South Shore, Calendar Bay, etc. And you can really figure out where the fish are and go and drill a hole, maybe 50 yards beside the hut. Try not to get too close because that does annoy people. But go there, poke some holes, drop your lines in, see how it goes. If you don't catch anything within an hour or so, move a couple 100 yards down. Pay attention to see where guys are catching fish. Just because there's a big group of huts doesn't mean they're all in good spots. A lot of people just go out and party. So you can also get maps from the ministry, whether you're in Canada or the US. There's lots of different maps out there. Online maps, you can use Google Earth. Google Earth is a nice map. You can usually see the shoals and rock points and all that good stuff. But give ice fishing a try. It's pretty inexpensive besides a gas-powered auger. Most of the time you can drive your car or your truck to a landing and walk out. Maybe a small plastic sleigh to pull a bag or something out if you're going to bring extra stuff. A lot of people have the portable ice huts. They're kind of like a tent with small propane heaters. Guys have big ice huts, wooden ones. You can also call people. They will bring you out to their huts, charge you so much a day to fish, bring you minnows and all the good stuff you need. So if you're really inexperienced, that's a good way because the guide will show you where good spots are to fish. So if you can think of any other tips, leave them down below. Those are just a few to get people started. Ice fishing is really inexpensive. Like I said, an auger is about as expensive as it gets. And if you talk to people ahead of time, a lot of them will poke holes for you. if you go on a Sunday or a Monday, usually a Monday is better. Sometimes the holes aren't frozen and you can just chip them out with a piece of metal, an old axe, anything like that. So cheers guys, and it's the end of season almost for ice fishing. Depending on where you are, we've probably got another 2 or 3 weeks. I got to go to work next week, so I'll probably get out 3 or 4 more times, and then that'll be it till the ice is out. But right now you're going to start seeing deals for tip-ups and all that good stuff. So if you're in the market, pay attention to your flyers and the magazines and all that sort of good stuff, and buy ice fishing stuff when it's on sale. So cheers guys, and get out ice fishing. We'll see you after.